In a quiet corner of the bustling city, where hope seemed like a luxury few could afford, a struggling cafe owner made a choice that would change lives. The Crimson Haven Café, once a lively hub for families and friends, now stood on the edge of collapse. Its doors remained open, not for profit but for something greater, a chance to offer warmth and food to those the world had forgotten. Among them was a man named Ethan, whose journey had taken him from a thriving career to the cold streets, accompanied by his bright-eyed daughter, Claire. Despite their hardships, Ethan's unwavering love for his daughter fueled a determination to reclaim their lives. For weeks, the two found solace at Crimson Haven, where the cafe owner, Logan Carter, extended his kindness without hesitation. But as financial pressures mounted, Logan made a startling announcement. He might have to close the cafe for good. The thought of losing not just a source of food but a sanctuary of hope left Ethan desperate for a solution. Little did they know this twist of fate would set the stage for a story filled with unexpected alliances, rekindled dreams, and the courage that transforms lives. Would Ethan find a way to repay the cafe owner's kindness? Could they save Crimson Haven from its looming closure? And what secrets of the past might emerge as their lives intertwined? To uncover how this tale unfolds, join us by subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing inspiring stories like this one. Stories of resilience, love, and the power of community. Don't miss the next chapter of this extraordinary journey. What do you think? Shall we dive deeper into Ethan and Claire's journey? Ethan sat on a weathered bench outside Claire's school, clutching her worn backpack as he waited. The sidewalk buzzed with the chatter of parents, but he stayed in the shadows, avoiding the curious, sometimes judgmental, gazes of others. He was once like them, confident, carefree, a man with plans and purpose. Now, he felt invisible, a shadow of his former self. "Dad!" A voice as bright as morning sunshine broke his sad thoughts. Claire ran toward him, her face lit with a smile that made the world's weight feel momentarily lighter. "You won't believe what I learned today. My teacher said I was the most creative in class," she exclaimed, her words spilling out in joyful waves. Ethan stood, a smile tugging at his lips despite his exhaustion. "Tell me everything, my little artist," he said, ruffling her hair. They walked side by side, Claire's energy filling the air between them as she recounted her day. Their route home passed the familiar alley behind Crimson Haven Café. The cafe was more than just a place for a warm meal. It was a lifeline. Its owner, Logan Carter, had a gruff demeanor but a heart that held more kindness than most. Despite the financial storm he was facing, Logan ensured that no one who came to his back door left hungry. "Ethan, Claire, just in time." Logan's booming voice greeted them as they approached. He was stirring a pot of stew, the scent wrapping around them like an embrace. "You two have become my best customers," he said with a chuckle, handing them a container filled to the brim. "Mr. Carter, I don't know what we'd do without you," Ethan said, his voice heavy with gratitude. Logan shook his head. "It's what people should do, but I must admit, things aren't looking good here." He paused, the weight of his words sinking in. "I might have to close the cafe soon. The debts are too high and the customers too few." Ethan's stomach twisted. Losing Crimson Haven would be losing their anchor. "There has to be a way," he said earnestly. "Let me help. I'll do whatever I can." Logan studied him, a flicker of doubt mixed with hope. "I don't see how, but if you've got ideas, I'm listening." Ethan couldn't sleep that night. As Claire dozed beside him in their makeshift shelter, a small tent in an abandoned backyard, he stared at the dark canvas above, mind racing. He thought of Logan, the cafe, and everyone it had helped, including him and Claire. The idea of it shutting down ignited a spark within him. He remembered the man he once was, an advertising strategist who thrived on creative solutions. That person felt like a lifetime ago, but perhaps he wasn't completely lost. If he could channel even a fragment of that resourcefulness, maybe he could find a way to save Crimson Haven. The following day, he returned to the cafe with Claire, his resolve firm. "Logan, I have a proposal," Ethan said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "Give me 1 week. Let me use my skills to draw customers back to your cafe. In exchange, Claire and I will stay here at night. We'll use the storage room, just somewhere safe. Logan raised a skeptical eyebrow, but nodded slowly. 1 week. If you can pull this off, I'll reconsider selling the place. Deal? Deal, Ethan said, shaking Logan's hand. As they moved their few belongings into the storage room that evening, they met Logan's daughter, Amelia, a young woman with a warm smile and a quiet strength. I'm Amelia, she said, offering Claire a small bowl of soup. My dad speaks highly of you, Ethan. If there's anything I can do to help, just let me know. As the evening stretched, Ethan was drawn into a conversation with Amelia. She shared her dreams of pursuing music, her love for the cafe, and her fears for its future. Her voice was passionate, and Ethan couldn't help but admire her determination. Claire, ever observant, whispered as she leaned against her father later that night, "Dad, Amelia seems nice. Maybe too nice." She giggled, leaving Ethan blushing and speechless. But there was no time for distractions. The clock was ticking, and Ethan had a mission to fulfill. What happens next? Can Ethan's creativity save the cafe, or will his efforts fall short? Stay tuned for the next chapter of this heartwarming tale of resilience and hope. The first morning of Ethan's plan felt like stepping into a battlefield. The cafe's interior, though cozy, reflected its struggles: scratched tables, chipped paint, and an emptiness that echoed in the silence. Ethan stood in the middle of the room, letting his eyes sweep the space. It might have seemed hopeless to anyone else, but to him, it was a blank canvas. Amelia found him standing by the counter, a notepad in hand. "You've been staring at that chalkboard for an hour," she teased, breaking his concentration. "I'm imagining it full," Ethan replied, a faint smile on his lips. He pointed to the board by the door. "That's where it starts. A sign that stops people in their tracks, something that makes them curious enough to step inside." Amelia's curiosity piqued. "What's the plan?" Ethan began explaining, his advertising expertise shining through. "We'll create a sense of mystery. Instead of listing the menu, we'll write something unconventional. How about, order a surprise meal, guess it, and if you're right, it's free. It's low cost, interactive, and sparks curiosity." Amelia's face lit up. "It's playful and different. People might just love it." The two worked together, sketching ideas, refining the phrasing, and finally chalking it onto the board in bold, eye-catching letters. By the time they finished, it read, "Today's challenge, guess the dish. If you're right, it's on the house." The sign was placed outside as the lunchtime crowd began to stir in the streets. Amelia watched nervously from behind the counter, her fingers fidgeting with an apron string. Hours they were past. The first customer walked by, then another, and another. Each one slowed, read the sign, but kept walking. Amelia sighed. Maybe it's not bold enough. Ethan remained calm. Give it time. People need a moment to let curiosity sink in. Then, a man in a business suit stopped as if on cue. He tilted his head at the sign, rubbed his chin thoughtfully, and finally stepped inside. "I'll take the challenge," he declared, sitting down at a table with a grin. Amelia almost tripped over herself excitedly as she hurried to the kitchen to prepare a dish. Ethan watched as she worked, her nervous energy transforming into determination. The man tasted the meal, thought momentarily, and made his guess. "Chicken pot pie?" Amelia clapped her hands. "You got it. Congratulations." The man's laughter filled the cafe. "That was fun. I'll tell my co-workers about this place." By the end of the day, 3 more customers tried the challenge, and while only one guessed correctly, the experiment was a modest success. Ethan could see the glimmer of hope in Amelia's eyes, and Logan, though skeptical at first, admitted the cafe felt a bit more alive than it had in months. The next day, Ethan sat in the storage room, brainstorming. The guessing game had sparked some interest, but it wasn't enough to draw a steady crowd. He needed something more dynamic, something that would set Crimson Haven apart. Amelia joined him, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. "I've been thinking," she said, setting a mug before him. "What if we added music? Live performances could create a unique atmosphere." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Music? Huh? Do you play?" Amelia hesitated, her cheeks flushing. "I dabble in guitar and singing, but I've never performed in public. It's more of a hobby." Ethan leaned forward, his interest piqued. What if you performed here? People love live music, which could be the edge we need. Amelia's eyes widened in alarm. Me? I couldn't possibly. Ethan cut her off gently. Start small. Play for me and Claire first. If you can handle us, the rest will be easy. That evening, the storage room transformed into an intimate concert space. Claire perched on a box, her face excitedly glowing while Ethan strummed a borrowed guitar to accompany Amelia. At first, Amelia's voice trembled, her fingers fumbling over the strings. But her confidence grew as she closed her eyes and let the music take over. Her voice, soft yet powerful, filled the small space, drawing a round of applause from her audience of two. Claire clapped enthusiastically. Daddy, she sings like a princess. Amelia laughed, her cheeks pink. You're too kind, Claire. The next evening, with Amelia's reluctant agreement, a sign appeared outside the cafe. Live music tonight. Guess the song. Win a dessert. The idea was a hit. People streamed in, intrigued by the challenge and enchanted by Amelia's performance. She sang with nervous energy and growing confidence, her voice weaving magic through the room. Ethan played guitar alongside her. Their impromptu duets warmed the atmosphere. Claire darted between tables, handing out menus and napkins with the seriousness of a seasoned server, earning smiles from the customers. By the end of the week, the cafe was buzzing with life. Logan returned from his trip to find his once-empty restaurant teeming with energy. His daughter singing, Ethan's clever marketing, and the infectious joy of a little girl had turned the tide. This is unbelievable, Logan said, his voice choked with emotion. You've done more than save the cafe. You've brought it back to life. What lies ahead for Ethan, Amelia, and Claire? Will this newfound harmony turn into something more profound? Stay tuned for the next chapter, where dreams and realities collide. The cafe thrived in the days following Logan's return, but Ethan knew their work wasn't over. Though the initial rush had brought new life to Crimson Haven, sustainability required consistency, creativity, and a strong connection with its growing clientele. Ethan and Amelia spent long nights brainstorming, refining their strategies, and addressing the cafe's shortcomings. One evening, after closing time, Ethan and Amelia sat at one of the cafe tables, their notebooks spread out before them. The room was dimly lit, the air heavy with the scent of freshly brewed coffee and the warmth of the day's activity. Amelia tapped her pen against the table, deep in thought. We need to keep the momentum going, but we also can't exhaust ourselves with daily promotions. Maybe we could host themed nights that bring the community together. Ethan nodded, considering her suggestion. What about a community talent show? We could invite locals to perform, singing, poetry, storytelling, and make it a weekly event. It would give people a reason to keep coming back. Amelia's eyes sparkled. That's brilliant. And it aligns with what we've already started with the music. Plus, it'll allow me to connect with other musicians. The two began drafting a plan, their ideas flowing freely. As they worked, their laughter filled the empty cafe, blending with the faint hum of the city outside. For a moment, the weight of their struggles felt lighter, and the spark of something deeper flickered between them. From the corner of the room, Logan watched quietly, a knowing smile on his face. He saw how Amelia's laughter softened Ethan's guarded demeanor, and how Ethan's steady presence anchored his daughter. For the first time in years, Logan felt hopeful, not just for the cafe, but for Amelia's happiness. The first talent night arrived quickly, and Crimson Haven was a flurry of activity. The makeshift stage, constructed from stacked crates and draped in twinkling fairy lights, gave the cafe a cozy, magical atmosphere. Posters advertising the event had been scattered across the neighborhood, and by evening, the cafe was buzzing with anticipation. Amelia stood by the counter, nervously adjusting her guitar strap. What if no one shows up? What if no one performs? She asked, her voice tinged with anxiety. Ethan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. People will come. Trust me. And if they don't, Claire and I will fill the silence with a duet that'll make everyone leave, he joked, earning a laugh from Amelia. True to Ethan's prediction, the cafe filled quickly. Locals of all ages arrived, some to perform and others to watch, creating a vibrant, welcoming atmosphere. The first performer, a young boy with a harmonica, received a raucous round of applause, setting the tone for the night. Amelia's turn came halfway through the event. As she stepped onto the stage, the room quieted, all eyes on her. She took a deep breath, her fingers trembling as they found the first chord. But as she began to sing, the nerves melted away, replaced by the pure joy of sharing her passion. Ethan stood at the back of the room, watching her with pride and admiration. Claire tugged at his sleeve, whispering, "She's amazing, isn't she, Dad? Like a real star." Ethan smiled, his heart swelling with an emotion he couldn't quite name. "She's more than amazing, sweetheart." The night was a resounding success. By the end of the evening, Crimson Haven felt transformed, not just as a cafe but as a hub for creativity and connection. As the last guest left and the cafe quieted, Amelia found Ethan sitting on the edge of the stage, staring out at the now empty room. She joined him, her guitar resting against her side. "Thank you, Ethan," she said softly, "for believing in me, for helping my dad, for everything." He turned to her, his expression sincere. "I didn't do it alone. You've been incredible, Amelia. Watching you tonight was like seeing someone step into who they're meant to be." Amelia's cheeks flushed. "You have a way with words, you know that?" Ethan chuckled. "It's the advertising background." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the energy of the evening lingering in the air. Finally, Amelia spoke, her voice hesitant but steady. "Ethan, do you ever think about starting over? Like, truly starting fresh?" He looked at her, his gaze steady. "Every day. But it's not just for me anymore. It's for Claire. She deserves a real home, stability, and maybe even a family." Amelia smiled softly, her heart swelling with hope. "Maybe we all do." Their words hung in the air, unspoken possibilities intertwining with the dreams they had begun to build. What challenges will Ethan, Amelia, and Logan face next? Will their newfound harmony lead to a deeper connection, or will the weight of their pasts hold them back? Stay tuned for the next chapter, where bonds are tested and dreams take shape. The days following the talent night were filled with a new energy at Crimson Haven Café. Customers flowed in steadily, not just for the food, but for the warmth and camaraderie the space now radiated. Ethan and Amelia worked tirelessly to sustain the momentum while Logan resumed his role with quiet satisfaction. But as the cafe flourished, Ethan found himself haunted by memories of his previous life. The career he'd lost, the colleagues who had once depended on him, and the home he'd promised Claire. Late at night, as Claire slept soundly in their makeshift shelter in the cafe's storage room, Ethan sat by the dim light of a single bulb, staring at an old photograph he kept in his wallet. It was of him, Claire's mother, and baby Claire, taken on a warm summer day before their lives unraveled. Amelia noticed the shadow over Ethan as they worked together. One evening, after the cafe had closed, she found him sitting alone in the kitchen, absently stirring a cup of coffee. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked, sitting across from him. Ethan hesitated, then placed the photograph on the table. "I lost everything," he admitted quietly. "My job, my home, my marriage. Claire's mother left when things got tough. It's just been the two of us ever since." Amelia studied the photograph, her heart aching for the man across from her. "But you didn't lose yourself," she said softly. "You're here, fighting for your daughter, for this cafe. That takes courage, Ethan." He smiled faintly, gratitude shining in his tired eyes. "Sometimes I wonder if it's enough. But seeing Claire smile, it keeps me going." Their conversation deepened that night, and Ethan allowed himself to open up fully for the first time. Amelia shared her struggles, her dreams of pursuing music, her sacrifices to support her father, and her fears of failing him. By the time they parted, something unspoken had shifted between them, a connection born from shared vulnerability and the quiet understanding of two people trying to rebuild their lives. The following week, an unexpected challenge arrived in the form of a local developer. A man in a tailored suit stepped into the cafe during the mid-morning lull, his polished demeanor immediately putting Logan on edge. "Mr. Carter, I presume," the man said smoothly, extending a hand. "I'm Richard Davenport. I represent a development firm interested in purchasing this property. We've been watching its progress and believe it has significant potential. Logan frowned, his grip on the coffee pot tightening. The cafe isn't for sale anymore, he said firmly. Richard smiled, unfazed. I understand, but I think you'll find our offer hard to refuse. We're willing to pay above market value, and our plans include revitalizing the area. It's a win-win, don't you think? Ethan, who had been wiping down tables, stepped closer. This cafe isn't just a property, he interjected. It's a lifeline for this community. Selling it would erase everything Logan has built here. Richard's gaze shifted to Ethan, his smile thinning. And who might you be? Someone who believes in what this place stands for, Ethan replied, his voice steady. Richard chuckled. Well, belief doesn't pay bills, does it? Think it over, Mr. Carter. We'll be in touch. With that, he left, leaving a business card on the counter. The encounter left a heavy tension in its wake. Logan sat down heavily, the weight of the offer evident on his face. Logan, Amelia said gently, touching his shoulder. We can't let them take this place. We've come too far. Logan sighed. It's tempting, Amelia. The money could solve so many problems. But this cafe, it's more than a business. It's our home. Ethan stepped forward. Then let's fight for it. Let's show the community what this place means. If we rally them, we can stand against the developers. Amelia's eyes lit with determination. We could host a community day, free meals, music, performances. Make it impossible for anyone to imagine this place gone. Logan looked between the two of them, his heart swelling with pride. All right, he said with a nod. Let's do it. The days leading up to the event were a whirlwind of activity. Ethan and Amelia worked tirelessly to spread the word, crafting flyers, enlisting local performers, and gathering volunteers. Claire became their unofficial ambassador, handing out flyers with a cheerful smile that won over even the grumpiest passers-by. The morning of the event arrived with clear skies and a sense of anticipation. Crimson Haven's alley had been transformed into a vibrant community space with a small stage, tables laden with food, and decorations that reflected the cafe's welcoming spirit. As the day unfolded, the turnout exceeded their expectations. Families, local artists, and longtime patrons filled the space, sharing laughter, stories, and meals. Amelia's performance was a highlight, her voice weaving through the crowd like a thread of hope. Ethan watched her from behind, his admiration growing with each note she sang. Richard Davenport returned, this time with a sour expression. He observed the lively scene from a distance before disappearing into the crowd, muttering something about a missed opportunity. By evening, the cafe was buzzing with a sense of triumph. Logan stood on the stage, addressing the crowd with heartfelt gratitude. This cafe has always been about more than food, he said. It's about people, community. And seeing all of you here today reminds me why I started this place. Thank you for reminding me why it's worth fighting for. The applause that followed was thunderous, and Ethan felt a sense of pride he hadn't experienced in years. What challenges will arise as the cafe moves forward? Will Ethan and Amelia's connection deepen? And how will the community's newfound unity shape the future of Crimson Haven? Stay tuned for the next chapter. The days after the community day were filled with hope and energy. The cafe had become a bustling hub of activity, with new faces appearing daily. The shared sense of accomplishment brought Ethan, Amelia, and Logan closer than ever, forming a bond that felt more like family than circumstance. One crisp morning, as the cafe opened its doors to early customers, Logan called Ethan into the back room. He handed Ethan a steaming cup of coffee and motioned for him to sit. You've been a blessing to this place, Logan began, his gruff voice softer than usual. But I'd be lying if I said I'm not worried about what happens next. We've had a good start, but keeping this going, it's a different challenge. Ethan nodded, understanding the weight of Logan's words. I've been thinking about that too, he admitted. We need something more permanent, something that secures the cafe's future while building on the community's support. Amelia entered the room, her expression bright but curious. Are you two scheming without me? She teased, taking a seat. Ethan smiled. We're brainstorming. I've been considering launching a membership program. People could pay a small monthly fee to support the cafe, and in return, they'd get discounts, exclusive access to events, and maybe even a say in the menu. Amelia's eyes lit up. That's a fantastic idea. It would give people a sense of ownership in the cafe. They'd feel like they're part of something bigger. Logan stroked his chin thoughtfully. It could work, but we'd need to be careful with the logistics. Make sure it's simple to manage. As the three discussed the details, the bell above the cafe store jingled. Claire ran in, waving a folded piece of paper excitedly. Dad, Amelia, Mr. Carter, look at this. She unfolded the paper to reveal a drawing of Crimson Haven, filled with smiling people and decorated with bright colors. At the bottom, Claire had scrawled in large, shaky letters, "The best place in the world." Logan chuckled, his gruff demeanor softening. I think we've got our first marketing poster. The membership program launched a week later, with posters, designed by Claire, plastered around the cafe and the neighborhood. The program was a hit, drawing in loyal patrons and solidifying Crimson Haven's place as a cornerstone of the community. Amelia began to shine even more brightly, hosting music nights that brought in local talent and turning the cafe into a cultural haven. Her passion and energy seemed boundless, and Ethan couldn't help but be drawn to her. But just as everything seemed to be falling into place, a storm loomed on the horizon. Richard Davenport, the developer who had tried to purchase the cafe, returned, not with an offer, but with a warning. Logan confronted him as he stood near the entrance, a smug look on his face. What do you want, Davenport? Richard's smile was thin, his eyes calculating. I just came to let you know the city is considering new zoning regulations. If they pass, your little cafe might not be so cozy anymore. Logan's fist clenched. You can't scare us. This cafe is staying right here. We'll see about that, Richard replied, slipping a piece of paper onto the counter before leaving. The note outlined the proposed changes that could force the cafe to close or relocate. The news hit like a blow, and the mood in Crimson Haven darkened for the first time in weeks. Ethan and Amelia stayed late that evening, pouring the document and brainstorming solutions. Amelia's voice was steady, but her hands trembled as she traced the lines of text. We fought so hard. We can't lose this now. Ethan placed a hand over hers. We won't. We've faced worse, and we've come out stronger. We'll figure this out together. As they worked, Claire sat nearby, drawing another picture. This one of the cafe surrounded by tall, faceless buildings. In the center, she drew a small, bright light shining through the darkness. The next day, the cafe buzzed with quiet determination. Customers noticed the change in atmosphere, and when Logan explained the situation, an outpouring of support followed. Patrons offered legal advice, others volunteered to help campaign against the zoning changes, and some even wrote letters to the city council. Amelia organized a benefit concert, bringing together local musicians for a night of music and solidarity. Ethan took charge of the cafe's social media, spreading the word and rallying support beyond the neighborhood. As the days passed, the cafe became more than a place to eat. It became a symbol of resilience and community. The zoning battle loomed, but the unity they had built gave them strength. What will happen when the zoning decision is made? Will Crimson Haven survive the threat, or will the community's efforts fall short? Stay tuned for the following chapters, where love, loyalty, and perseverance will be tested like never before. The night of the benefit concert arrived, bringing a storm, not just in the skies, but in the hearts of those who had rallied to protect Crimson Haven. The cafe was packed to the brim, every table and corner filled with people who believed in its mission. Strings of lights crisscrossed the room, their warm glow cutting through the heavy tension of uncertainty. Amelia stood on the small stage, her guitar slung over her shoulder. Her eyes scanned the crowd, lingering briefly on Ethan and Claire, seated near the front. Ethan gave her a nod of encouragement, his steady presence grounding her. Thank you all for being here tonight, Amelia began, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. Crimson Haven isn't just a cafe. It's a place where people come together, where hope is served alongside every meal. Tonight, we fight for that hope. Her words were met with applause, and as she began to play, the room fell into a hush. Her voice carried through the cafe, weaving a tapestry of emotion that brought tears to many eyes. Ethan watched her, his heart swelling with pride and something more profound, a sense of belonging he hadn't felt in years. Claire, seated beside him, leaned in and whispered, "Dad, she's singing for us, isn't she?" He smiled softly. "She's singing for all of us." The concert continued late into the night, with performances from local artists, heartfelt speeches, and even a surprise performance by Logan himself. The gruff cafe owner had a surprisingly soulful voice, and his rendition of an old ballad brought the room to its feet. The event raised significant money, but more importantly, it solidified the community's commitment to saving the cafe. Letters to the city council poured in, and the cafe's story gained traction on social media, with people from across the city expressing their support. But the battle was far from over. The city council meeting loomed, and the final decision rested in the hands of officials who might not see Crimson Haven the way its patrons did. The day of the meeting dawned with a heavy stillness. Ethan, Amelia, Logan, and Claire arrived at the city hall early, joining a crowd of supporters wearing pins that read, "Save Crimson Haven." Inside, the council chamber buzzed with tension as people filed in. The agenda was long, but the room fell silent when the topic of zoning changes was announced. Richard Davenport stood to present his case, painting the cafe as a relic of the past, a space better suited for modern developments. Then it was Logan's turn. He stood slowly, his towering presence commanding the room. "Crimson Haven is more than just a cafe," he began. "It's a sanctuary, a place where people find food and family. We've faced hard times, but this community has shown what's possible when people come together. I urge you to see this place for what it is, a cornerstone of hope." Amelia followed, her voice clear and unwavering. She spoke of the cafe's role in fostering creativity, providing for people experiencing homelessness, and creating connections. Ethan rounded out their arguments with a heartfelt appeal, sharing his story and the life-changing impact the cafe had on him and Claire. Claire, clutching her drawing, surprised everyone by stepping forward. "This is my favorite place in the world," she said, her tiny voice carrying through the room. "Please don't take it away." The council deliberated for what felt like hours. Finally, the chairperson stood. "After careful consideration, the council has rejected the proposed zoning changes. Crimson Haven Café will remain as it is." The room erupted into cheers. Tears streamed down Amelia's face as she hugged her father. Ethan scooped Claire into his arms, his relief overwhelming. Logan, usually reserved, let out a triumphant laugh, shaking hands with anyone within reach. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of joy and gratitude. Crimson Haven thrived like never before, its story spreading across the city and drawing in visitors from all walks of life. Ethan and Amelia's bond deepened, their shared triumphs forging a connection neither could deny. One quiet evening, as they stood outside the cafe, Ethan took Amelia's hand. "I came here with nothing," he said softly, "but now I feel like I've found everything." Amelia smiled, her eyes shining. "You've given us just as much, Ethan. Maybe even more." Their relationship blossomed, and Ethan proposed months later, surrounded by the cafe's patrons turned family. Amelia said yes, and Claire couldn't contain her excitement at the thought of their little family growing even more vital. Logan, ever the protective father, gave his blessing with a stern warning to Ethan. "Take care of her, or you'll answer to me." Years later, Crimson Haven expanded, opening new locations across the city, but the original cafe remained at its heart, a testament to resilience, community, and the power of love. Claire grew up surrounded by the warmth of the cafe and the music of Amelia's performances. When she was old enough, she began helping in the cafe, carrying forward the legacy of kindness and connection. As the family stood together one evening, watching the cafe glow under the soft light of the setting sun, Ethan reflected on how far they had come. What had begun as a fight for survival had turned into a story of triumph, love, and unyielding hope. Crimson Haven's story reminds us that community, creativity, and love can light the way even in our darkest moments when the odds seem insurmountable. If this tale has inspired you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories that touch your heart. Together, we can keep the spirit of hope alive.